Alright everyone, I'm going to show everyone how to set up a print in the MakerBot 3D printer software so y'all can send your files to me so we can get those printed for everybody. First thing you need to do though is to export your Onshape file. Now in order to do that you need to be in your Part Studio here, wherever you created your file. And there's two ways to do it. You can either click over here in Part 1 or down here in the bottom where it says Part Studio 1. So I'm just going to click on that, highlight it, and then I'm going to right click. And I'm going to come up here to export, and here's where you can change the name. So if you want, you can change the file name. So I just call this piston. The format you want it to be in is STL. Leave it as binary, and the units should be inches for us, but it depends on what you made your file in. So if it's in metric and millimeters, change it to millimeters. If it's in inches, leave it in inches. For my piston, I'm pretty sure I made it in millimeters. And leave the rest as is, medium, and download. And then go ahead and click OK. And I'm in Chrome, so it's going to download my file down here at the bottom. It's also now in like my recent downloads on the computer as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the MakerBot software, or the website that is. And like I said earlier in class, it looks a little different for me than it does to you, because I actually have the printers hooked up to my account. But what you're going to need to do is come up here to hit Start New Print. Okay, and again for yours, when you open it up, it's going to look like this here. Okay, it's going to say Replicator Plus for the printer, and the build plate is going to look like this. And what you need to do first is change the printer. So just click where it says Replicator Plus, and come down here to the bottom and click on Sketch Export Only. Okay, it's going to change the print size to the printer that we actually have, because if you create it in the Replicator, it's not going to work out, because this is the actual size of our 3D printer. So now you can come up here and click on Add Models, and you're going to find the model that you just downloaded. For me, it's this piston right here. Click Open. Now, mine is in metric, so I need to change my units. I'm going to leave it as is. Yours will probably show up a different size, but as you can see clearly, this piston is gigantic. So I'm going to come up here to Settings, and over here it says Application Units in Inches. Now I transferred my file in millimeters, so I'm going to change that to millimeters. Now it just depends on what units you created yours in. Make sure they're the same across the board. If you exported your file in millimeters, the application unit should be in millimeters. If you export it in inches, then your application unit should be in inches. Now change mine to millimeters so you can clearly see it made it much smaller. Okay, so it actually fits on the plate much better. It's kind of like Onshape navigating this around. I'm using the scroll wheel. I can move it in and out. If I have a laptop keyboard like the trackpad, use two fingers, move up and down, and it zooms in and out. And if I right click on my mouse, I can move it, pan it around like this, and so on. Alright, so now with the settings, there's a lot of different settings that you can use. First thing I want to make this to where it will print the neatest way possible. Now looking at my part right here, I got a big hole in the middle of this, and what that would do is it's going to print a lot of different supports when I don't need it to. So I want to move my part around so I can try to get a flat surface, which would be this bottom right here, flat on the build plate itself. So I'm going to come over here to where it says Arrange Models. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to click on Arrange. That's a lie. I'm going to click on Scale and Rotate, and I want to click Place Face on Build Plate. Now if you notice, it's grayed out. Okay, the reason is I don't have my part selected. So if I click on my part, it's selected. Now I can actually click on it. So I want to click on Place Face on Build Plate. Okay, so it wants me to select what face I want to place on the build. So I'm going to click on the bottom of my part. I'm going to say that is the bottom. And you see it automatically flips it over for me. So now my bottom is on the build plate itself, is flat, and it's going to have the best way to print this actual object. Also now with this here, with the scale, if it's still too big for how you had it, you can scale it up and down using these percentages right here. I can click the arrowhead down, and it changes my scale. Leave it up at 100% if you're right on how you want it to be. That's scale and rotate. You can also rotate it around. So right now, if I wanted, I can rotate it 45, 90, and so on. And you rotate the opposite direction, the Y direction. You can do that. So I'll put it back to where I had it. There we go. So that's scale and rotate. Extruders and materials. So the printer we have, the sketch printer, only works in PLA, so that should be automatically selected. Next, you got here our support type. So if you have a hole or something like this right here, hey, you would need to add some support. Like these edges right here, you need to add support because the extruder head is going to print layer by layer, moving its way up. And if there's nothing there to print on, that material is just going to keep falling down until it hardens enough to where it actually starts printing up, and that's going to leave your print very messy. So you want to add support material when it's called breakaway support. Okay, and when I go to print preview later, you'll be able to see that breakaway support. Now, you don't always need breakaway support. If you got something really flat, it's not needed. You don't need to put that on there. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on Display Expert Settings. And there's a lot of different settings in here that I'm not really going to go over because it'd be more time, and for this type of print, we don't need to do all that. Just a couple things for the base layer. We are going to print a raft. That goes on the bottom of the plate, and it's just extra plastic that we're going to throw away afterwards. And that helps us print the part nice and flat, and it keeps it on the build plate itself as well. Support type is breakaway. It stays there. Printer, don't worry about editing any of this stuff here. Leave it as is. The build plate temperature, okay, the build plate is heated, and that helps the part stay flat on the plate as well. The extruder, again, don't mess with that. Just leave it as is. Retraction for the distance, 5 millimeters. That means that the extruder head is going to retract 5 millimeters every time it jumps to the next part. The temperature for the extruder head, 220 degrees Celsius. Leave it that as is. The roofs, same thing. Leave the roofs. Shells. The way shells work, you can change the different shells or how thick the shells are. Like right now I have it on 2. That's just the default. The shell is basically the wall. So every time it doesn't print these parts solid. Okay, these parts are somewhat hollowish, which we'll get into infill about. But it will print 2 layers first, and those are your shells, and then it'll go into that infill. So we'll just leave it at 2. The infill, okay, the model infill pattern right now is a thatch fill. You can just leave it as is as that. Like I said, it does not print it as solid plastic. So what it does is kind of do like a cross hatching type or honeycomb type fill in there, so you don't waste as much plastic, because again, this is just like a prototype. And for what we're making for these luggage tags, we don't need it to be solid plastic. Floors, supports, and bridges, you do not need to mess with any of that. And same with the base layer. All that stuff should be good to go for the type of print that we're going to be doing. So once you get everything set up, you can come up here to the top, and there's a button that says Print Preview. So click on Print Preview, and it's going to generate your preview. It may take a minute depending on how big your part is. So we'll just wait. Alright, so my print preview is done now, and when you come over here to the side, you can check it out by the 3D picture. You can click at the layer, and it literally, if you want, you can play this right here. It literally shows you layer by layer what the pattern is for the print and how it's going to go up and down. This is very beneficial. Say if we want to do multiple colors for the print, you need to stop at a certain layer. You stop it, change the filament, put a different color in. Back to the 3D, shows you the model size. If I wanted to print this object, okay, it tells me if I started in now, it's going to be done by 11 o'clock tonight, so this is about a 9.5 hour print. Okay, so we're going to use this time for your calculation that you need for the manufacturing price. Tells us how many grams of the PLA is actually going to be using, and then some more unnecessary information that you need. What you can see down here, you can have the model, support, and raft. So the blue color is our model material. So that is actually what our model is going to look like. And then the gray and the light gray is our support and our raft. So you can see right here, if we zoom in a little bit, there's our support that is being printed up, and all that's going to be removed after the print is done. Then you see on the bottom here as well, This is our raft. Okay, and the raft again is just extra material that helps us print this a little bit neater, that which will be thrown away when we are done. Alright, so once you have your print preview done, you got your time done, what you're going to do now is you need to export this to me and submit it to the MakerBot software. So to do that, up here in the top right, you got the export button. Go ahead and click export, and it's going to make it a MakerBot file. If you see down here it says piston something MakerBot. Okay, so now what you need to do is go to the classroom, and earlier I uploaded a link that says MakerBot submit link. This is where you're going to submit your parts to me, your files, to be 3D printed. So you're going to click on that link, okay, and it says your name and add an STL file. So I'm just creating my MakerBot file right here. Enter my name. I am not a robot. And then submit your model. Okay, and well, now what happens after you do that, okay, you're done. Once you're done with that, you're done. And what I see, I'm going to go back to my workspace print jobs. If I did it correctly, it will eventually pop up here. Okay, so this is where all the prints have been submitted to, and that will pop up here once you have submitted it to me. Alright, there it is. See, GB piston mark printer unassigned because I want to assign the print, and if there's a print time, then I know you did it correctly. It's a MakerBot file, so there should be a print time, should be a MakerBot file, and that should be that. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email and ask.